Hello everyone, it's time for morning briefing. Okay, so here's the deal. You know, there's goober smoochers out there that want to just create trouble.
Yeah, like the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Oh wait, you're referring to the law-abiding citizen, where you gave him trouble by violating his First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment, and his Sixth Amendment, which is what you're doing in this little press conference. We'll get back to that.
So we have a nice deputy at the Bob Evans restaurant trying to deal with a trespasser. And our deputies focused on this trespasser when who arrives? Goober Smoocher. He's 32, he's from Davenport, he's originally from Ohio apparently. And he starts interfering and he gets all up in the deputy's business. The deputy tells him multiple times, back up, back up, back up. There's a new halo law. You've got to stay 25 feet away to watch or to video, and it's an officer safety issue.
There we go again about officer safety. Officer safety. You'll never hear these guys talk about citizen safety because they don't care. It's all about their safety, as if the Polk County Sheriff's Office hires a bunch of pussies. But you see, it's not really about their safety. It's really about control. They didn't care about Brandon's safety when they violated his First and Fourth Amendment rights for observing his government in the course of their official duties, which is protected under the First Amendment. And it says in Smith v. Cumming, a subsequent case law says very clearly that we can observe our government in the course of their official duties. And that's out of the 11th Circuit, covers the state of Florida as well. Let's continue.
You know, normal people don't get up in a law enforcement officer's face while they're trying to do the job and interfere, but he did.
This right here, that's getting in someone's face. This, way back here, I'm not in your face.
So he was arrested. You know what old Goober Smoocher said? He said that he wanted to see how many times we warned him before we took action. Well, now he knows. He's in jail, charged with resisting, interfering, and our new halo law. Hey, listen, folks. Leave these folks alone, our officers alone. When you distract them while they're dealing with somebody, they don't know if that somebody has a gun, a knife, wants to harm them. We don't know if you won't have a gun or knife or want to harm them, or you're just an idiot. Stay out of their way, or you're going to go to jail. What a deal. See you later.
I actually found out about this incident through Polk County Sheriff's Office official Facebook page. There are two posts, the video that I just showed you, and then there's a second post. If you scroll down to the bottom of that post, there's a handful of hashtags. One of those hashtags says hashtag frauditor. Now, if you don't know what a frauditor is, that's what the bootlicking community calls First Amendment auditors. It's a slanderous term to slander those who actually try to peacefully keep their rights active in this country as a free American. And every First Amendment auditor that I've seen does it either peacefully or is at least within the confines of the law when they're exercising or asserting their rights. Brandon's not an auditor. I did speak with Brandon. I'll tell you more about my conversation with him in a little bit. But he made it abundantly clear he is not an auditor. Yet Sheriff Grady Judd and the deputy sheriffs and captain that had him arrested and so on that are involved in this incident, they all try to make it out as like he's like this auditor who's just there to cause trouble and get a lawsuit. But that's not at all what Brandon was doing. Brandon was actually there, from what I gathered in my conversation with him on social media, he was there to check up on a homeless person who he has, I guess, become acquainted with to some degree. Apparently this woman is homeless. Her name's Teresa. She's in her 50s. She's out there frequently outside of that Bob Evans. And Brandon, a concerned citizen, he eats out a lot at that Bob Evans, by the way. So he kind of has had interactions with her before, like praying for her, that sort of thing. So he was out there to pray for her and also to observe his government in the course of their official duties, which is well within his right to do so. Teresa was being trespassed for solicitation. That would lead me to believe, assuming she's homeless, if that is correct, she was probably holding a sign asking for help, which is protected under the First Amendment as well. Man, Polk County Sheriff's Office loves to violate people's rights all day long. That's why they don't wear body cameras or have dash cams in any of their vehicles. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, they love to operate in the dark. All those who think that Sheriff Grady Judd is a constitutional, all-American sheriff, he's not. He's not a constitutional sheriff. He violates people's rights. He molests people's rights all the time. And what irks me about this situation is that as I continue to speak with Brandon, he's not in favor of First Amendment auditors. He doesn't support our community. All right. He thinks that, like me getting arrested in that same town, by the way, Davenport, Polk County, I was arrested at a tax collector's office for exercising my rights, but I'm an auditor, right? I was actually engaged in constitution protected activity, working on a story for investigative purposes, right? And for purposes of disseminating the corruption that I'm able to uncover. And Brandon said he thought that the way I went about it was stupid. He does not support First Amendment auditing. So he's not an auditor in no way, shape, or form. In fact, I would say, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, I see him as a bootlicker. And the reason I say that is because he said he moved down from Ohio to Polk County, Florida, because he wanted to support none other than Sheriff Grady Judd, who then goes on to his little press conference to put Brandon on blast and violate his Sixth Amendment. I mentioned that earlier. And what is the Sixth Amendment? Well, the Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to a fair trial and to have an impartial jury. But when he gets on his little press conferences and he drags all these suspects through the mud, their name through the mud, saying that they're this, that, and the other, and giving them and shedding their name in a negative light,
goober smoocher,
that's going to potentially taint the jury pool that might end up being one of the jury. And it might skew the judge's thoughts or opinions on what's going on because of the biasness that Grady Judd is putting out there in his little press conferences. It's a violation of the Sixth Amendment. So this incident took place apparently either on the public sidewalk out in front of the Bob Evans property, or it was like in the median area, which I think is still public easement, between the Bob Evans and there's a Wawa there to the left of the picture you're looking at there of the Bob Evans property. And either way, it doesn't matter. Brandon was well within his right. Bob Evans never asked him to leave. They're actually very close with him as he goes there often with his family. He told me that even a couple days after his arrest, he went back to the Bob Evans and the staff there was shocked that he was arrested. They were like, we thought it was the woman who got arrested. You were arrested? We saw you run back we saw you running back. And this is like when he was ordered to get back 25 feet. So he was compliant, but I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened. And I think you'll kind of see it the way I do. Now, there were 2 female deputy sheriffs with 2 last names with a hyphen in the middle. So, not really surprised here. So, one of them, her name was Lesly Anahy De-Dios. That was one of them. Badge number 9941. And the other one was Brianys Perez-Santiago. Badge number 9922. So, these 2 female deputy sheriffs were involved in telling him to go back. And then as he was going back, according to Brandon, there was a Captain Davis, male captain. Don't have his badge number, but apparently he stopped Brandon from moving further back and escalated the situation. And I forget if it was the captain or if it was one of the female deputy sheriffs that were trying to get him to use his phone by putting his face, what's it called? Face recognition. They tried to force Brandon to use face recognition to open up his phone so they can delete the video footage that he had about the incident. I'm guessing this was probably, it would make sense that this happened while he was sitting in the back of the police vehicle. But if my memory serves me correctly, that's what happened. And that's where he was they were attempting to further violate his rights and have that video footage deleted. Now, I've tried to get this video footage from Brandon. He refuses to give it to me or anyone else. In my opinion, he's being overly timid. It would make sense if he doesn't want any sort of police retaliation, as him and his family have to live in Polk County. But I think the real reason why he doesn't want to show it, and he's also said this to me, he's made it abundantly clear that he equates sharing this footage as quote-unquote bashing Polk County or Sheriff Grady Judd. He's under the impression, and this is extremely naive, he's under the impression that he might be able to actually sit down with Grady Judd, and then that Sheriff Grady will actually make this all go away, and this will all get dismissed. I mean, I hope this gets dismissed. I mean, there's no grounds for any of this stuff. This is Polk County we're dealing with. I was wrongfully convicted and sentenced for exercising my First Amendment rights in a public space within a public building. So I wouldn't be surprised if his case went to trial. And although Brandon, to me, is not a very likable person, regardless, a violation of his rights is a violation of we the people. And we should take this seriously, because If Polk County has their way with Brandon, I don't think he's going to make much of a fight, and it's just going to make it harder for the next American citizen to exercise their rights, because they're going to have more case law, just more ammunition to use against we the people, and we can't have that. We can't let Florida get away with this halo law, particularly Polk County in this case, because think about it for a second. Halo law says that you can't be within 25 feet of an officer in the course of their duties. Goes against the First Amendment, goes against Smith v. Cumming, and so on. Now, why 25 feet? What if they made it 50 feet or 100 feet? I mean, where do you draw the line, right? There's been other states. If I'm thinking of the correct state that comes to mind, I'm thinking of Arizona. I think the state of Arizona passed an unconstitutional law similar to Halo law. It says you can't go. It said you couldn't go within 10 feet of a law enforcement officer in the course of their duties or while they're undergoing an investigation. Now, that was challenged after someone was arrested and it was overthrown. It's just a matter of time before this happens in Florida. Someone gets arrested, they challenge it, and it gets reversed. So hopefully Brandon's case is what accomplishes this goal. Once I get off probation, that's something that maybe I'll be in a position to challenge. I certainly will if it comes up. 25 feet. There's a lot that can be missed when you're observing your government in the course of their duties when you got to stand 25 feet away. I mean, think about this. You're standing inside of a police department lobby, and there are law enforcement officers in there that say, hey, you're within 25 feet of us. You need to go stand 25 feet away. But this lobby is not even 25 feet. And that, causes you to have to walk outside. How are you going to observe your government in the course of their duties? And then you also have other situations like, let's just say you're outside. A lot of times when I'm standing like 5-6 feet away from someone who's talking, when I go back to edit the video, you can barely hear them. And that's like 5 or 6 feet away. When you're standing 25 feet away, especially on a windy day, you can't hear jack squat. Even though you can use the zoom feature on your phone or camera to, zoom in visually, you won't be able to hear what's going on. Plus, there's a lot of different objects and things that can get in the way in that 25 feet. There's a lot of obstacles that law enforcement can put there to obscure your vision and especially what you're able to hear, if you can even hear at all from that distance. So the way the Halo law is written is extremely vague and vacuous on purpose. All that a law enforcement officer has to do is claim harassment. I'm being harassed. I feel harassed. Halo law. And all of a sudden, if you're within that 25 feet, that's a second-degree misdemeanor all of a sudden that you have to deal with. It's only going to be weaponized against we the people. This is now the second case in Florida that I've heard of. There was one that was done on someone else's channel. I think it was on Long Island Audit's channel, if I remember correctly. And this is the second one that I've heard of. And I think I'm going to be the one that blows the lid off this one. Let's not kid ourselves. They're saying that this law, the Halo law, is to protect our first responders and law enforcement. But think about it. Only law enforcement can enforce this law. It's not like a fireman or one of the first responders can say, hey, if you don't get back 25 feet, I'm going to have you arrested. They can't do that. This is really about law enforcement. This is about catering to their comfort zone. Bunch of pussies, right? They're not heroes. They're pussies. And they're, let's not kid ourselves. All I'm saying is if we're going to talk about this, honestly, it is not about officer safety. It's anything but officer safety. What's strange about all this is old Brandon still thinks that Sheriff Grady Judd is a good guy and a hero, despite having his First, Fourth, and Sixth Amendment rights severely violated, just to name a few. And they've stacked 2 or 3 BS charges against him. All catch-all charges, by the way. He wasn't trespassed or anything. He was observing his government, like every American citizen should do at some point to partake in a civic duty. Right? As an American patriot, that's what every patriot should do here in America. But he wasn't even doing that. He was just doing it because of a friend, or at least someone he's acquainted with, a homeless person who he's prayed with before. The guy has some character, right? I mean, he straight up became irate towards me for pressing a little bit and trying to get the video footage. And when he kept saying no to that, I asked him if he would have an exclusive interview with me on camera, and that about threw him over the edge. I just hope that he comes around and shows the public what's really going on. So we have an opportunity to come behind him and support him despite his view on things. I mean, he definitely has a naive view of Polk County and Grady Judd. Another thing I wanted to bring up that he mentioned to me, and I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, but he said that what he was more worried about was an assault in the jail from a law enforcement officer, and that when he was being released, he mentioned she threatened me to the door with her. He didn't mention which law enforcement officer, probably one of the responding officers or deputy sheriffs, female deputy sheriffs, but I don't really know. But he also mentioned that. So it looks like apparently he was assaulted in jail as well. And despite all of this, including all the civil rights violations against him, he still wants to continue to live in ignorance. It's just beyond me. And he also mentioned that the Polk County jail was absolutely disgusting. He is absolutely correct. It is disgusting. I spent 3 days in that god-awful jail, and it was disgusting. When I left there, I was diagnosed with strep throat. I was becoming very ill. I got out just in time. Thank God. Can you imagine being sick in a jail cell with 5 other dudes with one toilet and connecting sink and getting really sick? I mean, it's a guarantee that everyone in that cell is going to get sick and potentially the entire jail. And their food, absolutely disgusting. And it must have been at least 50 degrees in there. It's freezing. It's a new law signed by Ron DeSantis to take effect January of this year, 2025. We're now in the month of February. It's already laid claim to 2 victims. Well, 2 that I know of. Might be more. But I can definitely say at least 2 victims. Brandon Lewis would be the second victim, as far as I know. I will keep an eye on this case. I'll keep you guys updated with anything significant that comes up. I'm sure some of you are going to want to stay on top of this as well. And it's definitely a case that you want to get behind of and support Brandon Lewis. I'll provide some of the information to his case so you can look it up for yourselves in the description of this video. So please check that out. I'll also leave links to one of the videos where I was arrested in Polk County, Davenport, the same city that Brandon was arrested in. I'll also leave a link to my trial that took place for that incident where I was arrested, where I was wrongfully convicted and sentenced. I would encourage each and every one of you to stand behind Brandon and support him through this, because if something were to happen where he would lose this case, it's going to be yet another incident or case that's going to be used against you and me. We can't let this happen. We can't let the tyrants win. We're losing our rights in this country every day. I mean, thank God it slowed down a little bit with the current administration. I know a lot of you aren't going to like me saying that, but it's true. We now have DOJ that is auditing our government, which is way past overdue. Thank God it's happening now. Maybe some of what we're seeing here in the state of Florida, you guys can write a letter, send an email with me to President Donald Trump, Elon Musk, let them know what's going on. I sure will. Petitioning your grievances is a First Amendment right as well. Just as a friendly reminder, under just the First Amendment, we have 5 fundamental freedoms. You have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition your government. So let's peacefully petition our government, redress our grievances to the White House. It's worth a shot, right, guys? Let's go ahead and send our emails, send a letter, whatever you got to do, contact Washington, the White House, whatever you got to do, right? We need to let them know what's going on. We can't let this slip on by. And I think possibly our current administration thinks that Sheriff Grady Judd is on their side. They probably see him as one of their own, and we've got to change that. It's our job to let them know, right? They're doing a lot of things right now. They've got bigger fish to fry. So let's, put some pressure on them and let's get this rolling. All right. Thank you guys for watching as usual. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until next time, truth, trigger, troll.